Welcome back. Today I was going to go through another master game. This one is between Leinier, Dominguez Perez, and Alireza Firouzja. But here on chess.com, which is where the only place that I found the game, it's in this strange, weird format, not on the normal chessboard that takes up most of the page. It's just shoved up there, so I'm going to move it to a different place. Okay, that looks a little better. I had to copy and paste the PGN file from that chess.com screen onto a different site where it would just show up on the normal board and won't have to zoom into a tiny spot on the screen. But anyway, this game is where Leinier, Dominguez Perez had the white pieces and Alireza Firouzja had the black pieces. This was a rapid game. Honestly, I don't know exactly how long it was, but it was part of the 2022 St. Louis Chess Club Rapid and Blitz Championship. Okay, and the reason I chose this game is because Firouzja played the Caro-Kann defense. All right. I'm just going to say LDP. As you can see, that's what I have on my screen because the name would not fit in my little box there unless I made it really small. Then you couldn't read it. But anyway, LDP starts with E4 and black responds with C6, which as we know is the Caro-Kann. I've been playing this fairly often recently when I face E4, so I'm familiar with this is the advanced variation. And here are the two choices I know are to do one of these two things. Okay, and Firouzja chooses the bishop to F5, which honestly is what I've been choosing a lot lately, even though Gotham Chess recommends C5. The engine says either one is fine. Okay, I have seen several responses here. I've seen bishop to E2, I've seen knight to F3, I've even seen bishop to D3, which in the player's database on Lichess is the second most common move, is bishop out here hoping for the trade. I think I've even seen H4 this early, but LDP plays knight to F3, which is fairly common, and I think E6 is the next move here. Yes. Okay, and now bishop to E2. Okay, and I believe here one of these knights out is a good possible next move for black. C5 also works here since you have moved E6 to open up this dark squared bishop. I think here I normally play C5. But I have played knight to E7 at this point. The idea, of course, is to try to reroute it. Wow, reroute it here and then get this bishop out, and then you can castle. And I have reached this position before according to my personal list of logged games. But here, I'm going to switch on the engine. We can look at Stockfish. We don't have to. We're going to try to figure out on the board what happens. But in my personal database, the next move, I've only reached this position one time, and in that game, my opponent castled, which Stockfish says is the best move. In this case, LDP played the second best move according to Stockfish, which is C3. That completes this Connect 4, as some people call it. And it kind of discourages you from playing C5, because then if you take, they're just going to replace their center pawn. Whereas before, if you had played this, they might have played that anyway. But if they didn't, if they did something else, you could at least take out one of their center pawns. The downside, of course, from doing that is that then they can check you here, which you'll, of course, block with your knight. But anyway, so we're now, because of the C3 move, we're at a position I haven't ever reached in any of my games. And what I normally play here is either getting this knight out because it can reroute this way. I want to leave this diagonal open for the queen as long as I can, especially if the opponent brings out their dark squared bishop somewhere. It's nice to have the queen here to be able to point at the B pawn. Another move I see here, again, I haven't reached this exact position, but in very similar positions, once this bishop is trapped outside the pawn chain, it can be a good idea to play H6 because you're going to want to bring this bishop back if they start pushing these pawns towards you. And here Alireza Firouzja plays H6. Okay, so I understand so far. And again, as I mentioned in my Caro-Kann journey video where I'm learning this opening, each of these moves has a reason that I can understand. When I have tried to look at the Sicilian, or even the Italian or the Ruy Lopez, a lot of times there's a move there that I'm not sure why that move is part of the opening lines. But so far in the Caro-Kann, I understand the reason for all of these moves. Okay, and now Ldp Castles. Perfectly normal thing to do. Oh, and remember when I said this is one of the upcoming moves, that is listed as one of the top 3 moves by Stockfish. And it is also the top move here in the player's database, which still has games up to this point. And again, the idea here, well, number one, it clears off the back rank, but it does keep this diagonal open for the queen, and you can't put it on the normal c6 development square because you put a pawn there, so this makes sense. And from there, the knight can help protect a c5 push. That's what I understand the reasoning of that one to be. And again, you want to move this knight at some point, perhaps here, but not yet. If you put it here now, then they can start building this chain toward your bishop, and it's going to get trapped. But another place that you might eventually put this is after you move c5, then this knight could possibly go behind it, because at some point you want to get out your dark squared bishop to castle. I know that much. Okay, what does Ldp play here? He still has a lot of pieces undeveloped. In fact, black is ahead on development here, which is kind of rare in my experience with the Caro-Kann, especially the advanced variation. White has more space. They're controlling, I think, more space on our side of the board than we are on their side of the board, and it makes our position cramped, difficult to move. Okay, Ldp plays knight b to d2, which is kind of mirrors what we just did. And here, I'm trying to think what I would play next. I think at this point I might want to go ahead and put the queen out here, or at least here, and prepare for the c5 push. The queen on either one of those squares, c7 or b6, would help protect that. And also, if they take, you can take with your knight and then prepare to move this knight to get the dark squared bishop out. Let's see. Okay, Stockfish says a5, and that's what Alireza plays. I don't think I've ever played a5 there, and I'm not sure what the idea is. This is the first place where I don't understand what his move does. I guess it's trying to discourage b4 because you're guarding that square. I'm not sure. Okay. And then the best response is a4 here. Okay, and that's what Ldp plays. I think that may be fairly obvious, just to stop this pawn from going any further, maybe. Okay. And again, I think I would be tempted to play c5 here, but Stockfish and Firouzja both said move this bishop down here. All right. So that bishop is now no longer in danger of these pawns threatening it here. Or I guess the knight could have gone there to threaten the bishop. But now the bishop has found a safe home. Are we now going to move? I think maybe now we're going to move that knight out so we can... Well, this bishop doesn't have anywhere to go except right there. That's one problem with this long pawn chain, is that all those dark squares are cut off from us. So the only way we can get this out is either to fianchetto here or to move the knight and put it there. Okay, Ldp. I know how to say Dominguez Perez, but I don't know how to say Leinier. Is it Leinier? Leinier? I'm not sure. Okay. Knight to b3. That's what Stockfish said, and that's what he played. Okay. That's what Stockfish said, and that's what Firouzja played. Now here, again, as I said earlier, this diagonal is good for the queen in Caro-Kann openings, but I don't think I've ever seen it go this way. Blocking this pawn Wouldn't c7 have been better? Sorry, I went back a move. Okay, Stockfish says b6 is definitely the best. Nope, now it's saying... It's still thinking about it. Knight to f5 might be good. Nope, now knight to f5 has dropped. We're back to queen to b6. Queen to b6. Knight to f5. Or queen to c7. Okay, I understand queen to c7. Because, again, it helps support this. I'm not sure if we want... Do we want to block in our b-pawn? You see... Okay, Stockfish changed the order again. Okay. While I was sitting there talking. I do know that this knight sometimes goes to f5. Depending on how everything is set up. But I'm not sure how you determine whether it goes to f5 or g6. Either way, it's going to block in your bishop. But that's, I mean, that's fine. The only reason the bishop's over here is because in the Caro-Kann, that pawn's going to block it in if we don't get it out there. And as opposed to, say, the French defense, which often has this exact pawn structure in the advanced French, from what I understand. The difference with the Caro-Kann is that you get that bishop out first and then move that pawn there. So it's kind of like the French, except with the light squared bishop over here. Whereas in the French, the light squared bishop would be trapped back on its home square. But anyway, so we know it's going to get blocked in at some point, but I don't know how to tell where to put the knight. Which one is better? That was my only point. And Stockfish is now saying that is slightly better than queen to c7 or queen to b6. Okay. Again, I don't understand b6, and I don't know how to tell which place to put the knight. But Firouzja understood b6 because that's what he played. And I don't know if he just memorized it out this far. That's possible. I've never seen this exact position with this exact move order, so I don't know if this is still in book or not. But there has to be some reason for this. Is it to protect this? Because that's the only reason that I know of to put the queen on these two spaces, is to guard and support the c5 push eventually. But maybe it has some other reason. Maybe it's to keep the queen kind of stuck here protecting the knight. Because if that queen moves, say, I don't know where it would go, but here or here or there, then the knight's mine. So it kind of, I guess maybe it kind of fixes the queen in place at this point. The queen kind of has to stay here. Okay, Stockfish is saying white should just go forward with e4 now. I mean, sorry, h4 or g3. Weakening the squares in front of the king, but that's what he has to do. I have seen a lot of players. In fact, one game I just finished a couple days ago, they had all of these pawns up here before they even castled. And I had this bishop out already, but hadn't castled yet, and I was trying to figure out if I should castle with all those pawns all about to come up here. But anyway, yes, Stockfish is saying it's okay to push one or the other of those pawns, or just move the king over. But here, LDP dropped that knight back. Maybe he wanted to push this pawn, which I understand. That would add some support to the center if we're about to take out support from the center around this way. If we're about to challenge the D pawn, I guess it makes sense to put the F pawn there behind this, and you can't do that if your knight's in the way. That's the only thing I can think of that helps. Or possibly rerouting the knight around this way, maybe. If they're suspecting we're about to play c5, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. Okay. And now Stockfish is saying that Firouzja can just play g5. This is one thing that is different between Stockfish and most master games. Stockfish, at some point in the middle game, sometimes even at the end of the opening, wants to just start throwing flank pawns forward. And I don't always understand that. I guess I understand that maybe Stockfish is suspecting what I suspected, that he was about to play f4 and g5 would prevent that. Maybe that's what that's about. Or maybe that's saying now you can bring the dark squared bishop out this way. What did Firouzja play? He played the second best move, which was knight to f5. I do understand that. That's common in many Caro-Kann positions. Also, my understanding is that a lot of it revolves around this d pawn and these c pawns. And if we are thinking about playing c5 and they don't take us and we take them, that adds an extra attacker there. And then when they take back, we have our queen back here. But no, that doesn't work yet because they still have their queen too. I'm not sure. That was where my guess is. Okay, LDP plays bishop to d3. Now, I have seen this a lot when the bishop is out here, and then sometimes you just trade bishops because that light squared bishop is just going to get in the way. Not always, but sometimes. But I don't think I've ever seen that played after the knight is here. Also, that cuts off the queen's defense of this pawn, which we just talked about. And now you've noticed that white's advantage, which white has had an advantage the whole time, until now it's down to plus 0.1, almost equality. I've noticed this. Oh, nope. Stockfish said equality. Is it 0? The Caro-Kann sometimes takes 10 to 15 moves, and we're on move 12 here, to reach equality. If you ever do. Sometimes you never reach equality when I'm playing. Okay. Again, Stockfish wants G5. Just start shooting those pawns toward the king, I guess. I mean, and that does allow your dark squared bishop to get out, because it's getting tired of sitting back here. It doesn't like the king. We know this about the bishops. They want to get out there and do stuff. But he plays the second best move, which is, I understand this completely, and that's probably what I would have played too. I definitely would not have played G5 here. But yeah, this is what we normally do after we get the knight out there, and then now we can castle. Okay, what does LDP do? He plays one of his, no, he does not play one of the top moves. He puts this knight back. Now that I'm not sure of. Unless his idea was to start running these pawns forward and he wanted the knight out of the way. Because from there, where's it going to go? Doesn't want to go there, right? Over here? You already had a knight there. Maybe he didn't know what to do and he decided to make a slow move. I don't know. Okay, now Stockfish says c5. Now Stockfish says c5, it's time. You have the advantage, very slight advantage, if you play c5. And I said, as I've been mentioning this the whole time, in my experience, in my understanding of the Caro-Kann, a lot of it revolves around this move, especially if you don't make it. Back when we first played the bishop out here, like move 3 or 4, the other option was to play c5 then. But then once they get this pawn in place, you have to build up. Lots of defense for that square. But now Stockfish says it's time. And Firouzja plays g5. That wasn't bad. It turns out that, oh, that's also equality. He's reached equality on move 13. Okay. I smiled then because how many times have I done a review, an analysis of one of my games, and for 4 or 5 moves in a row, I missed what Stockfish wanted. The last video I made, the last game that I analyzed of my own, it wanted d5. It wanted me to push my pawn to d5 several turns in a row, and I didn't see it and barely understood it. But then when Stockfish got to a point in the game where it said, yeah, let's not do d5 now, that's when I played it. And that's what this g5 reminded me of, because it had kept saying g5, 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 but this time it said c5. It said you were ready to play here, and then Firouzja played that. Okay. Still not a bad move, though. And okay, white plays h3. And not sure exactly what the idea there is, because we weren't about to put anything there, were we? I'm not sure. It's C5 again, it says. Yeah, I think, I mean, if I were given this position and put on the board, that's what I would play. And I'm not saying that because Stockfish says it's the best example, or I mean the best move here, the only move that maintains this very slight advantage or equality. It's just that I've been aiming for this the whole time. My whole idea of this position is around that. So that's why I would have played it here, I think. But Firouzja puts his knight on h4, which the game review here on Lichess counts that as inaccurate. And if you can see, Stockfish is now saying it's plus 1.1. So this is the worst position that Firouzja has reached in the entire game, or the worst evaluation by Stockfish. It's plus 1, and I don't think it's been that high up until this point. I've been kind of watching, but it's been closer to 0. 1.1, okay. And pretty sure that's going to happen now. I know when I have played a few times that I have had the bishop over here, and they have put their bishop out here. Usually it happens earlier, usually by move 6 or 7. If I don't take their bishop for the trade, and they take mine, I have to take it with my rook, and then I can't castle, even if I wanted to. You don't always want to castle here with your own pawns moved forward and them protecting that square, but even if you wanted to, you can't once you move your rook. So I guess that's why it's listed as one of the best moves. But Stockfish says G3 is slightly better, and okay, LDP captures here, which again makes perfect sense to me. He has to take back with his rook, otherwise anything else is a blunder. And now he can't castle if he wanted to. What does white play? Rook b1. Well, there's no bishop down here anymore, so you might as well play rook b1 and start pushing your b-pawn, I guess. Or g3 still. It says let's remove that knight. A lot of times you can't play g3 to get the knight out of here because the knight can go to f3. But in this case, f3 is very well guarded by white. So this would force the knight back, I assume, to one of these squares. But he plays the second. Okay, now rook b1 has dropped to third, and this is the second best move. Wait. I just said that square was well guarded by all these knights, but instead of... He didn't want this guarding it anymore. He wanted it to sit there. Okay, so he's offering a knight trade, I guess. And Stockfish says do it. Stockfish says do it. I don't think I would. Again, because of these pieces, the knight and the queen on the back rank, both guarding that square. If they weren't there and you took this knight, well, yeah, that forces that g-pawn out to uncover the king. And then you're going to move your rook over and be lined up. That makes sense. I don't understand why you would take it here. Because, yeah, they're going to take back with their knight. And then you're going to... Oh, it says, and then you're going to put your rook here anyway, even though you didn't induce the g-pawn to move. Okay. Well, Firouzja didn't like that and came back here, which makes more sense to me. Maybe that's because Firouzja and I, despite having almost nothing in common that I know of, except chess and being humans, maybe it's because we're both humans. Stockfish is not. That made more sense to me. Just bring it back. You can always put it there again if you really want to, or there. Makes sense to me. Okay. He didn't need it guarding this anymore since our knight has come back, so he's put it over here. That's odd. Where's it going? What? Maybe letting the rook out? Because I try to figure out what were they thinking? What was their idea behind this move? Because it wasn't to come here. That doesn't make sense. Or maybe it was to protect a b push, a b pawn push. But first you would need your rook over for that, I think. or coming out this way, but there's really nowhere to go there except, well, I guess here and then in there. Okay, but yeah, maybe it was just to get the rook out. Okay, but as black, I still think c5, but now Stockfish is saying no. Stockfish says just go there. King to f8. Or, oh, that's interesting. It wants to put the queen in there. Nice. If you did that, wouldn't they put their knight here? Knight to d2? Yes, it says that they would, and then you would come back. I don't know if you can read the second line. Depending on how big your screen is, you might not be able to read that. But the second line of Stockfish says, go queen b3 to induce this move, knight to d2, which threatens your queen, then bring your queen back. What was Stockfish thinking there? Is that because it blocks in this bishop? Stockfish, as playing as the black pieces, wants that knight there, and this is the way you trick it into getting it there. That's very interesting, but beyond my comprehension. As I said, I think I would play c5 here. What did Firouzja played? Queen to a6, which again puts him at plus 1.1. White having a decent advantage, at least in Grandmaster games, and these are both very high-rated Grandmasters. I think they're in the high 2700s. At their level, +1 is winning. At my level, +1 means somebody's missing a pawn. But for them, let's see. What does... Wait. No, it was the other knight he had back there. Yeah, this knight was over here, and it went there. And then this knight came out, and now he's put this knight back. He's just playing musical chairs with his knights. I don't know what that was about, but that took away all his advantage. And this time Firouzja and Stockfish were on the same page. h5. Okay. I guess this is defended. This is defended. Are we aiming for... guess he's ready to attack. And what does White need to play? White needs to play b4 here. Okay, so that was the reason for putting this knight over here. Or at least Stockfish says, since you put the knight there, you might as well play b4. Does he do it? He does not. He plays g3, which the computer wanted earlier. And Firouzja goes g4. They're very close to equality again. Wouldn't you just push this up? That's what I would do. Just lock those in there. Yeah, okay. Oh, wait. Go back. Did you see that? Look, Stockfish says your White still has a plus 0.4 if they play this. Okay, 0. Nope, wait, it's dropping. 0.2. But it's still plus. 0.3. Is it done changing? Yeah, 0.3. But when White actually plays it, all of a sudden it's minus 0. Well, no, it's changed its mind again. Okay, but I mean I think that's a very reasonable move. Otherwise, we're gonna start breaking stuff open, I guess. Now what do you have to do? F6. Tired of the... Okay, because you can't... Right now, we cannot attack the base of their pawn chain, which is the ideal way to break up a pawn chain. Or in the middle, if possible. Stockfish says to break open the front of the pawn chain. Is that what Firouzja plays? Yes. Okay. We're trying to... trying to induce them to take here so we can come out this way, I guess? Or maybe with the bishop. We want to free the bishop at this point. Okay. And White's best move now is f4. Or f3. Or taking that pawn. He takes the pawn. Which one are we going to take back with? Oh, knight taking back is much better. Why is that? I thought it really wouldn't matter. I need to know this as a Caro-Kann player. Why is the knight taking back minus 0.1, but the bishop taking back is almost minus or plus 2? So giving white the biggest advantage they would have had the whole game. Is it okay? Maybe it's because if you take with the bishop, then it's just running into pawns. These pawns protect these two squares. Okay. If that's it, then I understand. If it's something else, maybe let me know. But that makes sense because from here the knight actually has a place it can go. I guess that makes sense to me. Okay. What's next? He takes with the knight. Good. Because we just learned out that that's much better than the other way around. And now we're about even. He needs to play knight to d3. Stockfish said, get the knight out of there. We want to bring this rook out. Stockfish thought they had solved that earlier, but he never brought the rook out. He just blocked it back in there again. Okay, but he doesn't do... Oh, no. Or knight to a3. He doesn't play that. He doesn't play this. What was the other one? g2? Or that. What does he play? Bishop. Okay. That's, I guess, isn't that a decent outpost square? But that gives black an advantage. But only if they play knight to e4, which, that's why it gives black the advantage. That's what he planned to do anyway. That's why you took with the knight. We just talked about that. Okay, so he does that. And now are we going to trade bishops? It says that's white's best move. He does, and of course you would take back with the rook. Okay. I understand that. Again, it wants knight to d3 or knight to e3 now. It doesn't matter. Stockfish wants to move one or both of those knights. Or queen to d3. Oh. Offering a queen trade, maybe. Okay. Which one does he play? Top move. Okay. And have no idea what I would do here as black. No idea. Oh, long castle. I honestly wouldn't have thought of that. Usually in the Caro-Kann we castle this way, but we lost our castling rights when we captured with the rook, and of course now the rook's over here. Long castling. And that's what Firouzja did. Wow, okay. Very odd to castle into this pawn structure. But Stockfish likes it. Okay. Rook to e1. White makes the top engine move. And now I have no idea. I looked, I don't know what it says, e5 or king to b8. He plays e5. Okay, well, I have heard that Firouzja sometimes is just like a machine. That, I mean, people have analyzed his games. I've read summaries, I guess, of his games where the writer is just gushing over how Firouzja's moves are engine-like, but maybe not as consistent as Carlsen, which is why Carlsen is world champion. Okay. You take that pawn, right? If you're white, no. It says don't take the pawn. Stockfish doesn't want to take the pawn. Stockfish wants to bring his rook over here, or put this rook up here, or take. Okay, it says it's not that bad. It's not that much worse than one of the rook moves. Okay, and he does take. I would do this here. Semi-open file. I mean, this is on the other semi-open file. It's technically semi-open because we don't have a pawn on the e file, but we already have a rook there. So why not put a rook on the other semi-open file? And okay, that's one of the better moves. Wait a minute. Look at the engine. Can we go back? Here, I waited, and we looked at, it said rook to e1, and earlier it was saying rook to c1, but now it's also saying b4. Or take the pawn, and it says that that would be minus 1.1. But once he took it, But once he took it, the evaluation dropped to minus 2.1. That's very interesting. And I'm guessing that if I had had a greater depth set for the engine on the previous move, that it would have eventually found this much. But it's only minus 2.1 if he plays queen to b6. And that may be because this pawn is that it? Lining it up with the queen? Or is Stockfish just having one of those seizures it has sometimes where it's like, oh, that would be great, but then once you do it, nothing ever comes of it? Maybe it's that. Rook to the open file makes sense. Okay. Did he do it? Okay. Semi-open file. Either way, he's pointing a piece at that pawn. He's already got a knight pointed at it, and that queen to b6 move would point another piece at it. Stockfish is, I think, saying it's time to head that direction. White just needs to play e6. What? Why would... Sorry, I don't understand. Where it is now, it's protected by this knight, but if you move it forward, then we can just take it. No, you can't. Never mind. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you can. I was going to say they could fork us here, but they can't. Our knight guards that square. No, it... Oh, wow. I'm not very good at this. This is not what happened in the game. But, yeah, Stockfish says do this. And I was thinking, wait, I can just take it. And if I took it, they would take... What? What? I thought they would go here. But that would give black a huge advantage because of this. But then wouldn't... Oh, now your knight's protecting that. Okay, so why did it want to push that pawn then? I don't know, but that's what Stockfish wanted him to do. What did LDP play instead of pushing the e-pawn? Remember when I said if he'd pushed the e-pawn and we could take it, and then the engine suggested this as their best? Yeah, the engine is saying that's their best move, but he did that without pushing the pawn. He just took it. That's a blunder. That gives Firouzja a huge advantage if he will just take that rook with his pawn, which he does. -4. Okay. Good gracious. Now what does white do? Now does white go after the queen? Yes, that's what they're supposed to do, and that's what they do. And now I assume you would do what Stockfish wanted you to do earlier anyway? No. Oh, wow. That would blunder away almost all your advantage. You need to go there. All right. And he did. Okay. Wow, I think I would have just gone there, and I would have lost all my advantage. Okay. I mean, both of them attack the undefended knight. So I guess I'm not sure why that's better. And at least this one would be kind of pointing through the king. And remember, Stockfish wanted you to do that earlier, but now it wants this. Okay. And now it says to put the queen in there. Is that what... And that's what he did? I mean, he's already down -4, and I know sometimes when you're down, there's not a good move. But I don't understand why that's better than... Maybe there wasn't anything else that made sense. Yeah, I'm really not sure. Because, I mean, these are protected. Oh, the knight's not protected. Okay. Oh, wow. I guess because it hits the knight, and the knight has to go somewhere, and the knight has nowhere to go. And the only way to protect the knight... No, that's not the only way to protect the knight. You could just... Couldn't you just protect the knight this way? Oh, but then you would be taking your rook off the file. Okay. Okay. Well, it says queen to f7 is the best way to protect the knight, and that's what he does. Oh, and now I see it. Look at that. Okay. It's the best way to protect the knight because it doesn't just protect the knight. It aims at the f2 pawn. And the f2 pawn can't move forward, can it? Wow. No wonder it's -3. Oh, okay. That's why this was better than this. I get it now. Earlier, when the knight came to attack our queen, and I didn't know why you wouldn't just go to b6. Now I know why. Because if you just went to b6, they could have put their queen here, and you wouldn't be able to do this. So that makes sense, because that gave you a clear path to not only protect this knight, but aim right there. Okay, so what does LDP needs to take this pawn? Is that what he does? He does not. Oh my. Inaccuracy, but look at the evaluation, -6 now. He could have protected that pawn while winning one of his own. I'm wondering if he was in time trouble by this point, because we're at move 30, and this was a rapid game. How long of a rapid game? Should I check how long of a rapid game was it? Okay, I checked over on chess.com. It said it was 25 minutes. This was a 25-minute rapid game. But I don't know if they were in time trouble here or not. But I think a lot of people at my level would have seen this. I don't know if I would have. I'm not saying that I would have seen this. But a lot of people at my level would be able to see that you have these pieces lined up here, and then you would think there's a couple of ways, there's only a few ways to defend that. One is to take a pawn, so you're gaining material and protecting that at the same time. And it also says you can go right here. Wow. But knight captures e4 was definitely the best way, so I'm kind of surprised that LDP played over there. But again, he might have had 5 or 10 seconds left. I don't know. Or he might have evaluated several moves deeper and saw something that he didn't like about putting his knight here. Maybe he was still holding out hope of something happening down this way in desperation, and just decided maybe his rook should finally move one time. And so he moved it. It's the only piece on the board besides this b pawn, the two b pawns. Oh no, the f pawn hasn't moved either. But it's the only piece that hadn't moved. Okay. So now we take this pawn, right, with our knight? Is that's Stockfish's best move, and that's what he played. Okay, I understand that. Perfect sense. Okay, now he can take this, right? Oh, but now it's not a good move at all. Knight to e3 is much better now. Wait, no, that's not e3, that's d3. Knight to e3 is much better. Or knight to d4, which is here. Or b4. Stockfish doesn't have any hope in white's position at this point, so it's just make some moves, just put pieces on squares. And LDP found one of those moves, one of the top ones, and now we're supposed to challenge the queen with our rook, because this rook is defended by our queen, the knight is defended by that rook, so might as well chase the queen out. Where's it going to go? The queen doesn't have any squares. Except there. Did he play it? No, he did not. Okay. Knight to f3 is the next best move. And queen to f6 was third best. That's what he plays. He didn't like something about this. Perhaps he wanted to keep his two battery pieces lined up on this, and then maybe add this rook to it. Something like that. While at the same time offering a queen trade. And Stockfish says the best move is to take the queen, but instead LDP brought it all the way back and then resigned. Or ran out of time. I really don't know what happened. But that's the end. He might have resigned here, but I mean, I guess Firouzja's advantage is he's up a rook for a knight. So up one exchange. Plus he has more space. He's got pieces hitting squares in the opponent's territory. This knight is looking in here. We've got the aforementioned battery lined up. This is probably going to come over here, my guess. It's not resignable at my level, but again, maybe he ran out of time. Okay. Some things I learned in this game is that, at least at the Grandmaster level, it's not as important to move this c-pawn to c5 as I had previously thought. You saw he had several opportunities to do it. There were even a couple of cases where Stockfish was suggesting that was one of the best moves, but Firouzja, who is nearly 3 times my rating, 2.5 times my rating, never thought that was important, even when he had the chance. On the other hand, just like me, he never saw the g5 when the Stockfish was saying g5, and I wouldn't have either. But he did play g5 eventually, even after Stockfish said it wasn't that good anymore, and I still wouldn't have played it then. I would have played c5 at that point. That one time that I agreed with Stockfish. Okay. So anyway, if you notice something I missed in this game, or answering one of the questions, one of the moves I didn't understand, feel free to leave a comment underneath the video. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.